This video is sponsored by Voodoo.com. Voodoo is an authorized games retailer selling official keys. If you go to publishers' websites such as Ubisoft, you can tell that they are an official games retailer, so you don't have to worry about illegitimate keys. If you click the link down below in the video information or in the pinned comment that links to their website, it will directly help this channel as a portion of the profits will come back to me. But make sure you go to their website through this link, otherwise it won't matter. Paranoia is one of the highest rated Half-Life mods of all time. It was so good, it was even put on some retail CDs for Half-Life with instructions on how to install it. Yet, up until a few days ago, I had never heard of this mod. I'm not sure how. Before I started streaming, I was going to stream a different mod, but came across this one and changed my mind and decided to try out Paranoia, and I'm really glad I did. It was a really fun mod. Speaking of, I stream Half-Life mods to my Twitch all the time, so if you guys want to follow me over there and try to talk to me while I'm streaming, then feel free to do so. I love interaction with the people that watch me on YouTube. It's really cool to see. Anyway, back on topic. What is Paranoia? Paranoia is an overhaul mod for Half-Life 1. It doesn't play like Half-Life 1 at all. Everything has been changed. Let's start with the story. This game is based somewhere in Russia, and all the voice acting is done in Russian, so you're going to be reading a lot of subtitles. There is a story, but once you beat the game, it kind of is a little forgettable. Mercs were hired to draw your attention away from something, and somehow out of that, mutants got released. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, and I'd probably have to play through it again to fully understand what was going on in the story. I do remember that the story kept my attention well enough, but it was mainly the atmosphere that draws you into the story rather than the story itself. The best comparison I can come up with is Stalker. It feels very much like Stalker. And I really do have to give praise to this mod for its atmosphere. It feels very distinct from other games, unless you're talking about something like Stalker. That's, again, the best comparison I can come up with. The game is dark, grimy, and gloomy, with music in the background that's fitting. Although the one thing to point out about the music is that changing the audio levels didn't seem to do anything, so everything is just very loud. Keep that in mind. The atmosphere fits in directly with the gunplay and the enemies. The gunplay feels, for a Half-Life 1 mod, really good. There is sort of pseudo aim down sights. It's not exactly aim down sights, but it more or less is, and it does exactly what you would expect. Hipfire is less accurate than aiming down the sights, but when you aim down the sights, you move somewhat slowly. A problem does occur here when you're aiming down sights and you go to reload. You don't stop aiming down sights, so to say, when you go to reload, so you're still moving really slowly while you're reloading, and you can't stop this until you're done reloading. It can definitely get you killed. So keep in mind, before you reload, stop aiming down your sights. The guns themselves, though, feel really good. They sound loud, they sound punchy, the reloading animations are smooth, and they just feel more like guns than traditional Half-Life. One important note is that I used a fan-made patch that kind of changed the animations of the guns to be a little bit better, I would say, although I guess that's an opinion thing. But most of the rest of the mod is completely unchanged, so this is more or less the same experience you're getting with the original mod, just with some different animations. Your guns are going to be shooting at varied enemies. You have the traditional terrorists that just do little more than shoot back at you, and they're actually a threat. They do a good amount of damage to you, as you can't take too much damage in this game. But there's an interesting mechanic. You have a helmet that you can put down at any time by pressing V. This will prevent enemies from getting headshots on you. If they do get a headshot on you when you don't have the helmet down, you just instantly die. It does a lot of damage to you, so using this helmet is pretty important. The downside to using this helmet is that it's somewhat obscuring of your vision, only on the top and bottom, but not so much that it's too annoying to use. You can still aim down sights while you're using this helmet perfectly fine, but you can't use scoped weapons, or you can't use the scope itself, I should say. The other mechanic like this is a gas mask, but you use it so infrequently that you'll forget you have it. You obviously can't wear the gas mask and your face mask at the same time, but again, you use the gas mask so little that this won't really be a problem. The other enemies are a mixture of a bunch of different types of mutants. There's too many here to really go into depth about each one of them, but they will mix up how you're supposed to approach each situation. These mutants definitely fit in with the eerie atmosphere of this mod, and really, there's something about it that just kind of draws you in. It's just fun to shoot these mutants. It's really interesting in the world. The atmosphere just is done so well with all these different types of enemies. But here's where I start having some complaints, especially about one type of enemy in particular. The standard, boring zombie enemy. Now, I'm not a zombie fan, but I can sort of forgive zombies for existing in games like this. That's fine. My problem with the zombies in this game is that they're incredibly bullet spongy. This game loves to toss a bunch of zombies at you while giving you no ammo, and the knife does fuck all for damage. You'll have to hit an enemy a good 7 to 10 times before they actually die, and they only require 2 or 3 hits to kill you, with attacks that aren't really telegraphed properly, or at least you can see when they're going to swing, but it seems like the hitbox comes out before the animation does anything. For example, if a zombie does an overhead swing, it'll hit you as they're raising their hands to actually swipe at you. It doesn't really make any sense, and this will kill you a good amount of times. Essentially, your first experience with these zombies is you having to just hit them over and over and over again with your knife, with them occasionally killing you because they have weird attack patterns that aren't really patterns and the hitboxes don't match up with what they're doing at all, and them just not dying. It's a grind. It's a grind that's not fun. It's a grind that's very annoying. And eventually I got just sort of bored of it and just god moded and killed all of them and kept going so that I could just get guns and have fun. In fact, I would actually encourage you just to Impulse 101 in these sections, because it's a lot more fun to do that than just to slowly hit them with a knife over and over and over again, while slowly dodging their attacks over and over again. These enemies were definitely not playtested well enough, or they were going for this sort of zombie survival feel that just didn't really hit home. Thankfully, as I said, all the other enemy types do a much better job at being exciting and keeping your attention, and just forcing you to do something else. It's a little bit bizarre to me that they chose what they did for the zombies, because this game does give you a lot of guns, so you have a good amount of choices on how to approach each situation, but when the zombies come around, they starve you of ammo and force you into this slow, grind-out gameplay. So again, I would just encourage you to Impulse 101 in these sections. Remember how I said earlier that changing the audio doesn't seem to do anything? Well, let me go more in depth with that. If you lower the game sound effects or lower the game volume when it comes to the music, it really doesn't change at all. And this game is very, very loud, so you probably have to change things outside of the game to get the correct mixing that you want. This also persists into different things though. You cannot change your key bindings at all. And these default key bindings, while not being completely terrible, have some things that are perplexing. For example, there is a sprint in this game. It's not awful, it doesn't lower your gun or anything, it just feels like you're walking faster, more or less. But the key binding for the sprint is Alt. Alt. Who is going to use Alt for sprint? Why not just use Shift for that, like every other game in existence? Well, because Shift does walk. That's a thing you're going to want to do in a Half-Life mod, right? Walk? No one uses that. And why can't I rebind it? In general, not being able to change your key bindings is something that's just inexcusable and really, really strange. I'm not sure why you can't change it. For example, when it comes to most shooters, changing your weapons is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I like rebinding 4, 5, 6 to CXZ because it's a little bit closer to the movement key so I don't have to move my finger as far. But I can't do that in this mod, so just have to deal with 4, 5, 6. Same thing with V. Although not too far away, it is far enough away to have to think about it when you want to quickly put down that mask. This is really important to be able to do in the heat of battle, but when you have to reach that far away, maybe you hit C by accident. So I would have liked to be able to rebind that. Oh, and C, just for the record, C is pills, so it's going to be giving you health back, so if you miss input when you want to bring down the mask, you accidentally use some of your health. Great. All these things aside though, this mod is really fantastic, and you owe yourself to play it. It has great atmosphere, great art direction, good gunplay, and pretty decent pacing.
Here one... Oh. You know, I don't know what this enemy does, but I'm not gonna find out.
The game likes to go between terrorists shooting at you to zombies to mutants, even to a final climactic firefight between terrorists and then having to shoot down a helicopter. It's definitely playtested pretty well, with really the zombies being the only major blemish in it. The difficulty itself I felt was fine-tuned pretty well. It was a little bit harder than the easy side, but it still is almost perfect, with the exception of the zombies being bullet sponges. But even then, I don't see that to be difficulty as much as them trying to force a sort of survival zombie thing that didn't really work. The mod will feel like a challenge, but it won't be complete bullshit. It will be an enjoyable challenge. Overall, you can beat this mod in roughly around 2 hours, give or take about 30 minutes, and it's worth that entire time. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it doesn't end too early. That about sums up my review of Paranoia. There is a Paranoia 2, however, and I'll be making a review of that coming up soon, so be sure you subscribe, favorite, comment, all that stuff. I'm sure you've heard this a million different times. But if you really do enjoy my videos, then consider contributing over on my Patreon, or checking the link down below to my sponsor. That also really helps me. Seriously, I could not do it without you guys, all you people over on my Patreon, donating on Twitch, and just all these different things. It helps pay my bills, my rent, my groceries, and it really, again, I could not basically live without the support you guys give me. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time for my review of Paranoia 2.